So as we all know, right, there are a lot of difficulties with adopting new work practices. People are accustomed to doing things the way that they know how to do them, and they might not understand the value of making those adjustments. Change fatigue is also a real thing, right? When we're considering all the multiple aspects that there are to managing a program. You've got cultural and technical, strategic and tactical elements that you need to consider. So I'm curious how you all handled resistance to change for folks who may not have initially been on board or who were hesitant about the transformation. Maybe tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced and how you overcame those.
Really good. And that's an important point, right? I think in government service, you find that people get exhausted with the problem that you were discussing with tools where they're like, hey, we're going to buy this thing and then we're just going to kind of drop it on people. I can buy a box and I can drop it on my program. And so you do deal with change fatigue a lot. And I have found that there are three main areas that I like to highlight. One is that having leadership buy-in is critical, making sure that at the very end of the day that you've got leaders saying, we're going to go down this road. And so definitely working with them, but also pulling in the people who have these issues and listening, having open ears. A lot of the work that I do, I find is listening to the challenges they have, listening to the struggles that they've got, and then pulling them in to the process of change, showing them how working in an iterative way is going to solve a lot of the pain that they might have in their own job. And if you can make it relevant to them and can make use their ingenuity in being a part of that transformation, that ultimately that's the way to success for a lot of the government people that I have dealt with in the Navy.
Yeah, awesome. It lowers the cost of learning, right? To be able to rapidly run through those learning cycles. Awesome. Kristen.
I would definitely agree. Change management is critical whenever you want to adopt anything new in the government. But to your point, the way that we did that was we really spent a lot of time and energy preparing a really solid communication strategy and plan. And we took the time to really focus on what the benefits would be for these particular customers. And then we met with them and we had lots of interactions to really understand, what are your concerns? How can we help alleviate those? We let them know that, one thing about this particular group is our customer as well as our team sit very closely together and they work together every day for, many years. Some have been there from the beginning of TSA. So it's a very tight-knit group. So there's a lot of trust there already. So by building on that trust and then standing up those LACE groups that I mentioned earlier, having that executive steering level as well as the day-to-day working level, it helped when it comes from the top down with buy-in, but it also helps with the working group being able to become the coaches and the experts when they're working with customers or folks who are outside of the team that have questions that come up. So I think a robust comm strategy, really listening to the challenges from the customers and making sure they felt heard, and then working closely and of course delivering on our promises.
I love hearing about communication with technology. I think a lot of times we deploy technology and you can quickly forget about the communication piece. Curious by show of hands, there's different tiers, right, with cultural change. I'll start with the CIO level. How many people kind of at the CIO or equivalent level are interested in hearing about change at that level? Real quick, show of hands, versus say the senior level leadership, the head of your organization, the agency head. Which, if you prefer to hear about CIO, would you raise your hand? Got a couple, and let's say the agency head, kind of all the way at the top. A couple hands or a couple more. Okay, great. And everybody else is kind of like, no more questions. All right. So agency head. So you always want to do, right, change from the top down, right, if you can. The problem with SAFe is when you go and talking to senior leadership about scaled Agile framework, number one, Agile is probably not even in place. Two, it's probably a concept they don't necessarily understand about business agility. I mean, they understand the concept, but not necessarily what it means and applied to IT. So we got like 4 or 5 slides with our agency head. And we went in there and we really had to ideate, like, what are we going to communicate? And, you know, like I say, a lot about SAFe is about thinking about things, not doing things. You know, as senior leaders, you want to think a lot harder, and SAFe is like going to Home Depot, and there's all these different things on the shelf, and values and principles and ways of building teams and so on and so forth, to think about what you do and do it better, and to focus on a business outcome. That's the value of SAFe. To me, and the way that we're applying it. So we went to the agency head and we focused on 2 things. We focused on business agility and we focused on product owner. And I'll probably talk a little bit later about product owner, so I'll leave that to the side. But we basically said we came in and said, we didn't say we want to do something. We always take surveys in IT. And if you don't, I highly encourage you. And if you take any survey from any government organization, or really any organization, and it's going to say do better. I don't think anyone's gotten a survey that says you're wonderful, you're 5 stars, we love everything about you. We all hope for that, we aspire to that, but that's not often what we see. And so you can take a survey from the workforce and go to the lead the agency and say, hey, this is what your workforce and your folks have told me. And they've told me I need to be agile, right? Everybody wants something quicker, they want it better, they want it cheaper, right? That sounds like agile. So the conversation with leadership starts with, you're telling me to do this. Your workforce has told me. And I think that's key to change. Instead of you saying, I have a great idea, right? Because that doesn't always resonate. And you can talk about the problems and you can connect with the leadership. Hey, I know it's, when it takes, you thought you were going to get a release in a month and it was 3 months. That's frustrating. When you have some of these applications, you're only getting some features out every once a year. You probably like to see features coming out and new things coming out every month, right? That will resonate with them and you're empathizing. I think that's important in that change management with senior leadership. And so once you do that, you kind of lay down a quick foundation for Agile. I always tell people, this is more to the IT folks versus the senior leadership, but don't make me cry, right? And that's a call out to the values of Agile. So collaboration over contract negotiation, right? We value that more. We still value contracts, but we want to collaborate. We want to respond to change, right? Over following a plan. We want individuals' interactions over process and tools, and we want working software, right? Working software. Milestones in SAFe are defined as working software. Working software over documentation. We still need to do documentation. Systems are going to make us, and it's important. But I always tell people, don't make me cry, right? Let's go and apply those values. So that was kind of key to the leadership.
Yeah. I just want to echo what everyone else has said. One of the biggest challenges we have in the government is, I can practice Agile and all that stuff, but what about all the other groups? Like, the cybersecurity groups, they're more on a waterfall type process. And when we were trying to go to the cloud, everyone was telling me like, oh, we can finish all the work, but you're going to be waiting on the approving authorities to kind of get through everything. And then I'll just like, well, okay, let's just try to understand what we're trying to do, understand the value stream, understand what value is, where the points of leadership really has to get involved and try to make changes and try to push it through. And then I got a lot of pushback and said, well, they do first in, first out. I'm like, okay, well, we have admirals, and when we talk to the admirals and tell them that's what they told us, and we kind of communicate strongly through leadership, things can get moving wrong if you just communicate it properly and you identify it quickly and you kind of pre-plan yourself and try to make sure what the needs that you need from the team. Because I've always get pushback where everyone tells me, well, we can't do it. I'm like, we can do the work, but we're waiting on everybody else. I'm like, well, that's leadership's job. And if you have true leadership buy-in, we'll get it through, and as long as you complete the work and it works good, because work has to be good, because you'll get a kickback and all that stuff. But leadership buy-in is really key for all this stuff to be very successful.